Good afternoon, good morning, good day world. My name is Natalia Molebatsi, coming to you live from Johannesburg, and welcome to this Poetry Africa session brought to you by the Artfluence Human Rights Festival, the inaugural festival that is brought to you by the UKZN Centre for Creative Arts, Hear My Voice, the NIHSS, as well as the Embassy of the Netherlands, but also a whole lot of other supporters of human rights. I am honored and privileged to be part of this inaugural festival, but also to host these wonderful poets from South Africa, from Kenya, from Ghana, from the Netherlands, and from Angola. I want to say hello to our YouTube, our Twitter, and our Facebook community. Please stay with us, think with us, share your comments and your questions with us. We are all in this together. I want us to start with a little bit of introductions. I am with Jaliya The Bird, Stella Kivuki, Simone Atangana Bekono, Natty Olgi, Mbali Malimela, and of course, Natalia Molebatsi. From Hear My Voice, we have our technical supporters, our supporters of poetry who work with us from the behind the scenes, Mwafrika Wamkhati, Ishmael Sibia, Pumulos Gamoto, and of course from Poetry Africa Center for Creative Arts, Siphindile Hlongwa. I'm going to ask Jaliya to introduce herself, yourself, and say where you are, and just say a few words to our family all around the world. Over to you, Jaliya.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Jaliya The Bird. I'm a writer, poet, performer from Angola. And in my poetry, I like to explore Blackness, womanhood, Africanness, and how these factors individually or collectively affect how one experiences the world. I'm very passionate about freedom and authenticity, and how people live up the core of who they are. And I'm in Luanda, Angola. Hello, everybody, once again.
Yes, Luanda. And now we are moving from Luanda. We go to the east of Africa. We go to Kenya. Stella.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stella Kivuki, as you've heard. I am the Kenyan in this poetry group. When it comes to myself, I am a poet. I call myself a wordsmith as well as a poet in the making. I feel I have not fully achieved all that there is to achieve with my poetry. I tend to fight in a lot, and men tend to tell me this, that I'm angry towards them, which I am, because I am a feminist to a great extent. I am also a counseling psychologist, and I tend to use or try to use my poetry within that field, because misinformation is one thing that we can start a conversation on to try and get on the right track. So right now I'm very passionate about educating people as much as possible on anything that I can educate on, whether it's the feminism, whether it's human rights, whether it's mental health. And that's me.
All right, and from Kenya, we come back to South Africa. Mbali.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mbali Malimela, and I'm from South Africa, KZN. I'm a isiZulu writer and performer. My poetry is more based in African issues, domestic, and all those. I'm more involved in KZN poetry initiatives and all those. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbali. All the way to the Netherlands, we go to Simone.
Hi, everybody. My name is Simone Atangana Bekono. I am a writer and a poet as well. I'm also a teacher. I teach writing at a small writing school that is particularly interested in helping people find writing skills that are usually not very, come from backgrounds or places where it's not available to them. I am half Cameroonian, and my writing also deals with migration, and of course also migration from the African continent, and the lingering effects, of course, sometimes of colonization and feminism as well.
Thank you, Simone. And last but not least, Natty, kick us off with some of that jollof situations in Ghana. I'm not going to say whose jollof is better between the Nigerians and the Ghanaians, because I like to stay a favorite of the Nigerians and the Ghanaians.
The Nigerians themselves know when it comes to jollof, Ghana is on top, so there's no argument. All right, everybody, and greetings from Ghana, greetings from Halakasa. I'm most privileged and honored to be here with you. Thank you, Natalia, and thank you for the whole group that organized, the whole team and everything. Very much grateful. I'm a poet, I'm a wordsmith, I'm a rapper, I'm a singer. I am an instrumentalist. I do anything related to art, as much as my gift can extend to. And I'm a community builder as well. Like Stella, I get angry over a lot of things. You know, we're in Africa. So I write on religion, I write on social political issues, and anything that tries to keep us under the sheets of true liberation. So that is me, and I belong to Halakasa, which is the biggest poetry family in Ghana right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, colleagues. If you've just joined us, welcome to this Poetry Africa session that is a contribution to the Artfluence Human Rights Festival, the groundbreaking festival that opens us up to human rights violations all over the world. As you've heard with these introductions, you will know that poets and poetry not only give us the opportunity to see light, beauty, and hope in the world, but also help give us a language that shape the stories and experiences of people all over the world, people who are not necessarily always able to articulate their experiences and their violence that they go through. So I think poets are special because they always can craft that language that expresses exactly what people want to say. So I want us to just share our experiences about just how, especially in the past year, how human rights have been violated in our countries, just or where we've been. I think one of the most devastating results of COVID has been the collapse of the gig economy. We've seen how theater spaces, art making spaces, dance theaters have closed down. But even more devastating has been how funds that were meant to supplement the income of artists, the livelihood of artists, have been squandered, mismanaged by the powers that that be, by companies, by governments mainly. So I just want to hear from you, what is this human rights violation that you can pinpoint? And it's difficult to pinpoint one, just one, because there's so many human rights that are violated in the places that we are. But if you can talk to one, and if maybe you want to talk to two, but what is it, Stella? Let's start with you. If you can think, if you can think of one, but also, in addition, share with us what you think the role of poetry has been, or the role of poetry can be in soothing this kind of violation, or in helping to just blast some of these silences that happen in these spaces.
I think you're right in saying that it's very hard to pinpoint just one violation. Even when discussing with a few people about this whole panel that was going to come, there was such a list of violations, but I think the biggest one, and we experienced this even especially at the start of COVID and the lockdown, was extrajudicial killings. Police force just went up a huge notch. At some point within the lockdown, we would say, remember, COVID has killed less people than the police, so be careful. It was such a mind-blowing thing that people were more concerned about the police than the actual virus itself. And with right, at this point in time, there've been so many disappearances of people in police custody. There've been killings of people we can't even find a reason for, but there's always going to be a cover-up story. It was a group of gangs that we found somewhere and gone. But this is someone's child. We haven't even given them the right to a fair trial or go through that entire process. It's just gone, trigger fingers. When it comes to poetry in this space, it's been huge in the sense that these poets become such activists. They become so loud and so prominent. They become the voice. They start to put their work out there, and people start to think, that's actually happening. That's true. We have the biggest example I can think of is King Kaka, who came out with a song Wajinga Nyinyi. That ruffled so many feathers, but it forced people to look at what was actually happening, as opposed to just a story in a newspaper that you eventually wrap meat in and move on with your life. It became, no, look at this problem. That is the biggest role poets have. They reflect what society is going through. They make you look at what society is going through. Don't brush it off, actually focus on it. Outside of that, they build hope within a society. It's, yes, this is happening, but we can do something about it. We can rise above this. We can become more than what we are seeing here. It sets a standard that is so much higher than what we are so used to. We accept whatever is just gonna meet the bar and then repeat the same mistakes, hoping for something different, but it's insanity. Poets themselves are a driving force because they're a voice of a people that just need to be heard. Thank you.
And just in closing, before we move to Jaliya, what is then the balance? How do we balance our livelihoods, because we need to live as well through this writing, and we also need to stay alive, because the violence can be, we're going to silence you through death, or through just not giving you work. How then do we stay in the front lines with our work, giving this hope that you talk about, but also just making sure that we live through our writing and through our production?
I remember at the start of COVID, when now they were starting to shut down performances and they were starting to pull, a lot of people, especially artists, lost a lot of money, lost a lot of energy and work and projects that they had put time and effort into. But that was very brief because people started to switch over to online concerts. So what you'd find is people would hold live performances, and then you'd either just send in, like this in Kenya we use M-Pesa. So they'll put a number there and you can send just a little bit of money. And this, as much as it's not the huge crowd you were hoping for, these concerts themselves can bring you a little bit something, can continue to put your work out there, can continue to market you in one way or the other. People have been linked up in so many ways just in this pandemic. An easy example is this. I have never known anyone from South Africa, but here I am speaking on a panel as a poet. This is huge. This is connections working even from home. It's possible to have these connections. I know it's a tough time and this is most likely a band-aid on a bullet wound, but it's a start. It's a start to creating an online life for poets. It's a start to online concerts and trying to see how you can make money from it, whether it's even putting your work out on platforms like Spotify or Apple Music so you can make some money from that. But it is a start in the right direction.
Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts, Stella. Jaliya?
Thank you. I would definitely agree with Stella. Here, police brutality has also been a big issue. And so freedom of assembly is something that has been really violated because just like in many other places in the world, last year we had a series of protests against police brutality. And it was quite intense and really interesting to live in this moment. We have had this issue for years. We have a police that's very, very violent and very aggressive, like on a daily basis. And mostly they harass taxi drivers and market women and hawkers. And so we have been trying to address the issue throughout the years, but then it hasn't been as serious. People haven't paid as much attention as they did last year. So freedom of assembly is like I said, a human right that was violated a lot last year throughout the protests. Police would open fire on people. We had a couple of deaths as well. And yeah, and poetry, like Stella mentioned, is something that gives people space and gives people room and gives people a voice. And it is a huge thing for us here in our poetry circles, a place where we are able to say what we're all thinking and express so many different things. And for years, we have lived under a dictatorship, right? We had a president, Dos Santos, who was in power over 50 years. He came into power in 1979 and just left recently, 2017. Now we have a new president. And in the beginning, it seemed like things were going to change. Now we realize that they're more concerned with the theatrics of making things look like they're changing, but so much is not really changing, and especially with regards to freedom of expression and people being free to do things. It's really a serious problem. And so poetry gives us the space to express ourselves.
Yeah. And before I move to Natty, just has there been any funds? I mean, Angola is known, the Angolan government, like many governments, is known for splashing taxpayers' money. I mean, but has there been something for artists, something reserved for artists during COVID, and how has that been going?
Yes, so government is very, very flashy, super flashy. Unfortunately, no. I've seen, well, from what I've seen, there have been no efforts like from the Ministry of Culture or just the government in general. And people have had to come up with their own ideas and do their own things. We haven't received support from the government, no. And if there are things, then it's a small, restricted group of people. And so artists that have maybe political ties, to the political elite in Angola and things like that, but general funds for the general public and things, no, it hasn't been the case, unfortunately.
Girl, I will tell you what's been happening in South Africa, but let me hold my peace for now. Natty.
All right, thank you, Natalia. Okay, I would like to digress and move a little bit from police brutality, which is not too much here in Ghana, except for the Rastas, who are normally stopped by police for their hair to ask them questions because they think we are always hiding something, and that said, I'll link it to recent issues of students being denied access or admission into schools because they are Rasta, and the Rastafarian community, as well as those who have dreadlocks, have not been too happy with it. And we feel this isn't right in itself because we are Africans and this is who we are. And no disrespect to our women who put on wigs and all, but I find it funny when we accept wigs, which are hair from, dead people and horses and all, and we frown on natural hair, and it's like we are Africans who want to be every other thing aside being Africans, and it's really sad. And the next thing I'll touch on is also people being denied access to basic needs such as free drinking water, due to illegal mining. And sad to say, some of which are state sponsored. You understand? We have governments that says it's fighting against illegal mining, which we call galamsey over here. But yes, still, when you read between the lines, you realize this same government that engages in such activities, and it's more like a treadmill approach to issues. And there are people who drink from the same water as animals do, and it is sad as humans to be in this age, and yes, still people would drink water which is close to gutters. I find it really sad and very upsetting. These are the things that boils up my blood, Yeah. And with the issue of COVID, artists have not been supported at all, I'll say, because we as Halakasa, ever since the COVID, we've been holding Zoom shows ever since the lockdown and all up till now, and that's what we try to use to keep up the fire ablaze and all. Other than that, a lot of our soldiers would have lost their fire, lost their steam, and would have grown cold, and it's quite a sad situation. You're on mute, please.
I was saying that I agree that poetry helps us to just keep that steam, and sometimes you ask for how long, and when you look at such a basic need as water, it is completely insane. I mean, I can also hear you talking about hair, and I look at us. I mean, Black people have some of the most pliable hair. We can have dreadlocks. We can have, I look at some of these sisters, man, those weaves, when it's good, woo, listen, it's beautiful. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get myself one of those wigs, because you have an afro, you have dreadlocks, I don't think there's anybody else in the world who can move through hair the way that we do. And it remains such a political statement. And really to hear you talk about how police still stop dreadlocked people, Rastas, and think that you're hiding something. This is something that we've been going through for over 100 years, if not more. This is something that we've gone through forever. This is something that's still going on in South African schools, where children are removed from schools because they have an afro, because they have dreadlocks. So these are real issues, you know. And yeah, Simone, with your beautiful afro, let's come to you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I guess that, I mean, I'm from the Netherlands, which is, as we all know, one of those very wealthy Western European countries that has a lot of wealth. And I think that what is so important always for me to think about is that, you know, a lot of things that are very well, like the Netherlands is a very, we call it like a state that takes care of its people in a way, because they have that wealth. But at the same time, the way that we have, the way that I guess Dutch capitalist society works, it is basically in a way that says, okay, how we gain this wealth is through the destruction of other people's property, lives, nature, humanity, basically. And of course, I'm very much aware of that. And what I've been seeing, especially during COVID, is that this separation of what we would consider to be Dutch people and our Dutch way of life, from how what we think is an okay way to treat other people, is becoming increasingly larger. So we have now a lot of people who are, you know, fleeing from their countries. That especially the Netherlands is very much in our in politics. We are very busy. Our prime minister with. We are one of the strictest. We have one of the strictest refugee laws in the Netherlands. So, and we are actually making sure that the rest of Europe is refusing access to refugees, which means that young children are starving or freezing to death sometimes on beaches in Greece. And our country also refuses to take them in, especially if they are orphan children. They still find ways to deny them access to this country, which I find, of course, to be terrible. And during COVID, this has just become bigger and bigger, and xenophobia has risen, because who gets, you know, the resources that helps us, you know, the country afloat during the pandemic. And that's been really awful. I think, you know, the Netherlands, it's kind of the other way around. I think that where in some countries there's been an increase of police brutality, the Dutch people have kind of revolted against the limitation of their huge privileges from police, which I find very ironic. But what I can also see is that, you know, the poets and the poetry community that I know, we are doing what we can, and a lot of people have actually become, what I've also heard in the discussion here, a lot more activist than some of them I would have imagined to be before. And I think it is because as a poet, you do meditate on life and society, and you realize that this gap between the privileged and the underprivileged is becoming increasingly bigger every day. And I do think that it's a really good development, actually, because I guess that in a country like the Netherlands, there is, for a lot of people, it doesn't feel like it is necessary to be an activist or an activist poet.
I hear you, and you know, some of our lives and the kind of violations that we go through would never be heard if we did not have arts, you know, and particularly poetry, because a lot of times poets put themselves on the line, you know, beyond what other, you know, beyond the other genres, you know, because poetry is kind of so explicit in this way, you know, and poetry has always been, and I don't know what you know, our YouTube and Twitter and Facebook family would think. I'd like to hear what you guys think about how we are always around social justice. We find it so hard to just shut up, you know, and we want to write about roses because roses are beautiful, and trees and water that flows. But sometimes we do not have water that flows, like how Natty was saying, you know. So yeah, I want to transition and speak to Mbali. And because Mbali and I are from the same country, and we have, I think, this violation that I think one that is close to my heart. I'm not trying to go into your mouth, Mbali, so I'm about to shut up, but we have had for almost 3 months artists who have invaded, and invaded is not the right words, but who have had a sit-in at an office called the National Arts Council to protest against the squandering of funds that were set aside as COVID relief for artists. And a few artists got that money. The list of artists who got that money was a little bit dodgy. The amounts that were received were dodgy. And so having artists who put their lives, their livelihoods on the line to say, we're going to that office, we're going to sit in there, and we're not going to leave until we get answers. That was a bold move. And yeah, I want to kind of hear about that, but I also, later on, I want to hear what our community who are joining us on these platforms think. But Mbali, the platform is yours. I want to hear, the people want to hear your voice.
Hello, everyone. So I think the most violated human rights in South Africa has been the right to equality, mostly, because we've seen how during the pandemic, the rich becoming more rich and the poor becoming more poor. We've seen how the grant that was given by the government, not everyone getting it. We've seen racism, how the K word describes or expresses how people are not the same way, how people hate each other actually. And we've also seen the high rates in femicide as well. Women being treated as objects mainly because they are not as powerful enough or less in terms of strength. So I think poetry has played a big role in terms of this. It has showed more expressions in terms of this. It has showed how it has actually been more impressive to see poets speaking and writing and reciting about politics. It has shown people how to respond to such things, because we know how in South Africa, most complaints are done by South Africans. South Africans usually go to strike, not a peaceful strike compared to other countries. They use violence, they ban libraries, ban offices. So I think this has helped, poetry movement has helped in terms of this. It has shown people how to voice out their, whatever they want to say, how to voice it out in a correct way.
Thank you, Mbali. And I want to give a big shout out to Siphindile Hlongwa and the team that did a sit-in at the National Arts Council offices. And I think part of this festival, part of the reason that this festival was born is that movement, Abahlali Base NAC, which means those who sit at the NAC office, because they sat at this office, they slept there, meaning those who were supposed to work in that office could not come in there, and that really raised that really raised the awareness of people who are not even paying attention, because I think people pay attention to the arts as an entertainment vehicle, but not as a vehicle for an intervention around inequality, as Mbali was saying, you know, as an anti-racist tool, you know. So I really appreciate the kinds of interventions that you are making, how poetry fits in, or how poetry does the work of social justice, from speaking about police brutality to politicians who work for themselves and not for the people, to, you know, racist spaces, to capitalist governments, to just the basic needs of water, you know, to issues around identity as Black people in particular. How is it that somebody can look at you and see your body as a threat, as danger, because you are Stella and you have your beautiful hair, but because it's not straightened, there's something wrong with you. So it's just those kinds of issues that we have been talking about if you've just joined us, and we want to hear from you. What do you say has been an issue that has affected you in terms of human rights in your country? If you are watching, where are you watching from, and what do you want to contribute to this conversation? I want to, while we're waiting for comments, I know my colleagues will share comments and questions from our viewers, but I want to also ask my colleagues for some poetic justice, some poetic license, some poetic interlude. I know you have poems up your sleeves, inside the dreadlocks, everywhere you have poems. And so, Mbali, I think as the resident, ungumhlali, and you have to welcome other kids with a little bit of something before we open it up to the other poets. Please help us with a little bit of something. I think what's important also with this event is also to show that poetry educates, is a tool of awareness, but it can also be enjoyed, is a reflection of life. Life is about carrying the contradictions that we are about sharing beauty and joy, but also the rage and anger that we are all about, the light-hearted moments, but also the serious issues that we have been talking about. So I want us to enjoy a few lines of poetry. So Mbali, over to you.
Okay, so this is an isiZulu poem, sorry, so people can understand. Konje lingakanani ibanga esenilihambile nizama ukuzithola, zininetha zidlula nibhula amazolo, bantshela kanjani ukuthi niyizehluleki ekubeni senihlulekile nathola nalahlekelwa nakangaka ngoba kusobala abanazi. Bebekuphi ithemba linilahlekela ngempela nicabanga kanjani ukuyeka? Akukho okukhethekile lapha, wena ngokuphelele uyilungelo ukhethekile. Ukulwa kwakho phambilini nokuqhuba kwakho manje isibonakaliso. Wena kawufikelanga ukuzolethelwa lapha, ufikele ukuzozenzela. Kunzima kunjalo ngeyakho lendlela, nguwe owazikhethela konje kungakanani. Ibanga esenilihambile nizama ukuzithola, zininetha zidlula nibhula amazolo. Akunivezeli ngani lokho ukuthi nina nisempini la nizolo.
And the joy of poetry is that even when you cannot understand the meaning of the poem, your flesh, your soul, your entire heart can understand that. But Mbali, you're welcome to share just an anecdote around what the poem was about, if you want to. Otherwise, you can leave it to what the flesh understands. So it's your choice.
Okay, so this poem is more about the journey South Africans have been through, because we come from an apartheid era as well. So it's more like expressing what people have been through, what they fought, and how far they come with all of that.
Yeah, I truly enjoyed how you poetically expressed how your ways are exemplary. And I just find the isiZulu language so musical. So thank you about that. Where can we go? Where can we travel from South Africa all the way to where? Let's travel to the Netherlands.
Yes, so I'm gonna read a part of the last poem of my book, which is, it's a very long poem, so I'm just doing the last bit, the English translation. I can't believe I ever leapt into a swimming pool without fear. The drops of rain falling on me from the explosions in the black water burn me like sulfuric acid. We hate the black water so much we want to rip off our skin where the water has touched us. We want to burn it. This costs me ink and brain power and associative dreams. Yemoya or Stirka, or some other mother perhaps, can you explain this to me? What can I do about it? Who should I talk to? We would rather push our children into the water than go into it ourselves, babies flying through the air like Olympic shot puts, thrown into the black water like bags of rubbish. Sometimes we save each other from the black water with ropes and arms and garments tied together. It takes so much effort. It takes my happiness too. It takes diamonds of time and energy. The water does not move. No, that is my reflection. The tree moves. The sun flickers like a young flame over the surface. Even the mountain in the distance moves, bit by bit, pulling faces. The landscape growls with life, while the water just lies there. That fucking water. A pond, or a sea, or a puddle, a swimming pool, that bucket in my hand. More than anything, I fear the bed of the water, and the water frightens me because it is so easy for me to recognize myself in the reflection, and I feel guilty because I feel incomprehensibly attracted to the black water, like us standing on the edge of a cliff, a towering cliff, looking down.
Yeah. Yes, Natty, you just reminded us that poets do that finger snap. How water can give and take at the same time, just like how the hand that gives can be the hand that takes. So the hand that builds can be the hand that breaks. Yeah, we share beauty and joy as much as we share anger and grief. Yeah. Can we travel to Ghana?
Okay, all right, thank you. So let me share something. This piece is entitled The Age of Empires. Long before the invasion of our colonial vampires, we lived as kings and queens who ruled empires with our own systems of government that never ran tired. So please spare me the fairy tale of we living as savages and barbarians long before the gun fired. We were the masters of trade. We knew our worth in the market, so we were never afraid. Anytime we stepped on stage, the rest of the players ran for cover because it wasn't fast as the king in the lion's cage. My natural design, our kings and queens were walking treasures. So divine, they were adorned in riches and wealth that could not be measured. So evidence was a shine to the rest of the kingdoms called us blessed. Poverty was far from our doorsteps, because gold dust was the air around the place we all slept. We were rich in our cultures and traditions until we got introduced to subtractive additions. Long before westernization and the need for school, our forefathers were blessed with divine wisdom to lead and rule. And with our warriors brave as lions and as strong as the bull. Look, we fear no man so long as you had blood running in you. It was our forefathers who wore leaves at bulletproof. When I took me, they go far past Lisa Gam. So check and you shall know the truth. Our fathers communicated in calabashes and in pots long before came the phone booth. You can call it juju or black magic, but back in the day, who dare you to be lawless? We had very effective judicial systems long before came judges and lawyers. We had very little need for medical doctors, because without plants and herbs, our herbalists were just flawless. Africa is the home of spirituality. Long before colonialism, we practiced Islam. Yes, we practiced Christianity. However, our true identity is neither found in organized religion nor in any system designed to abuse us. We were never a dark continent because we knew God and nobody knew us. We were way ahead in technology prior to the mention of computers. So study the hieroglyphics and the monolithic Egyptian pyramids of Giza, the great Zimbabwe ruins of Masvingo built with granite without the use of mortar, the Sibiri of the Igbo people, the vice script of Liberia, from metallurgy, mathematics to agriculture, archaeology, economics, text, art, and architecture. So please stop reading false history as though we do not know who we are. Matter of fact, civilization started here in Africa. So why then they talk say be when ancestors be uncivilized and illiterate, historical massacre, and those who believe in these lies are nothing but hypocrites, because right before our very own eyes lies the true, very beautiful heritage, and in this you and I want to take pride and choose to celebrate. So tell the stories of our forefathers and how they were more glorious than all others. Tell the stories of the wealthiest man who ever lived, King Masamus of the great Mali Empire. Tell the stories of King Ramesses, the most powerful of all the pharaohs. Tell the stories of Hannibal, the military leader who became supreme ruler of the peninsula. Tell the stories of Akhenaton, the most remarkable of all the pharaohs who preached and lived the gospel of perfect love, brotherhood, and truth. Tell the stories of King Tahaka, the great Nubian king who ruled over the largest empire in ancient Africa. Tell the stories of Makeda, the queen of Sheba, who ruled over Arabia, Ethiopia, and all of Sheba. Tell the stories of Queen Yasantua, who led Ashanti Kingdom to war in defense of their golden stool. Tell the stories of Queen Nefertari, who went for peace and led and restored come to her people too. Tell the stories of Cleopatra, Timbuktu, Queen Nzinga, Shaka the Zulu. For a people who fail to tell their own story will soon lose their glory. So with one voice, let us tell the stories of old. With one voice, let us tell the stories untold. And with this same voice, let the glory and majesty of Africa once again begin to unfold. May we no longer be known for war, misery, poverty, corruption, and coup d'etat. For our blood is of royalty. Kings and queens are who we are. Thank you.
May we no longer be silent. Yeah, thank you, Natty. Thank you, Natty. We leave Ghana and we travel. We travel to Luanda, Angola.
So I'm going to recite a poem dedicated to poets, to poetry, right? Blessed be your pen. I found that the pen is indeed mightier than the sword. This tongue is how we wage war and we set things on fire. To my sisters and my brothers, from the same mother, we came through one womb. We voiced words. These are my spoken words to you, right? Create like the world is dead and you are a revival, like you're a renaissance, like one can die and be born again with what you make, like you've got a people to save, poor, like there are wells inside of you, and how many people you reach depends on how deep you draw from your waters. You've got a people waiting for you, or you're afraid of who you are and what you could do. Why do you shrink? Why do you live on the brink of yourself, afraid of breaking? How else would you know what you are made of unless you are broken, unless you are opened, torn to see inside yourself? So let the hurricane and the hurt work as they should. You must believe that ultimately all things do work for your good. So go, flow, draw. And if you get on that stage and your knees buckle and your voice does shake, do not feel betrayed. It does not change who you are. For how long will you hide just because you seek? Tell the stories and sing the songs that have been caged in our souls. Stand in the truth that sets free, the freedom they call rebellion. Then bring on the uprising, the rising up of a generation of artists who will not be silenced. We will jump like we have not been forbidden to move. We will defy your systems. We shall disrupt your traditions. Call us disobedient. We shan't be swayed or phased. We refuse to be chained. Be set free from the bondage of acceptance. No longer stand as defendants awaiting sentence for a trial from the court of approval. Don't let their words define you. Don't let their walls confine you. And write. Come fully with the capacity in your hands, the magic of your mind, the strength of your might. Do not trade the gavel for honey. Speak the ugly truth. Understand that you are needed. With a craft that is gravid, it is valid. Stand your ground, do not back down, and blessed be your pen. Thank you.
Oh, blessed be your pen and know that it is valid. Thank you, Jaliya. And we travel lastly to Kenya.
This piece has no title, and rarely do I ever title my pieces, but here we go. I am human, but with the way I am pushed aside, hidden from curious eyes, you wouldn't see. You wouldn't see the bruises, the wounds, the destruction they knew they made for me. I am human, but with the way I am hushed physically, and where hands cannot reach a bullet from me. And when I disappear, what you will hear is a cover-up. Apparently, I was a thief, a gangster. I was too dangerous, too smart for my own good. And all of this will not be enough to justify why I was snuffed by forces greater than me. I am human, but they will have you believe I am less than, to make it easier for their conscience, to make it easier for themselves, but not for me. I am human. See me, hear me. Do not sweep me away. Do not let the story die with me. Fight for me. Scream for me. Let your lungs fill with air that was taken from me. Let them know that they will not, let them know that I will not be silenced, that we will not be silenced. Flash a spotlight on them for the world to see. Do not let it go quiet, for I am human, rightfully. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. I mean, I wish we had more time. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you to the raptured and the desire to repair the rapture. We, the living, the surviving, and the thriving, the enduring and the reckoning. We who remain after the loss, the evidence and the sign that we, the resisting, insists on the beauty we are. Welcome to the moment that is now. Thank you for joining me and for thinking with us. Thank you for sharing yourselves with so much grace, with so much honesty, with so much generosity. Dear people, for everybody who has just been watching us from YouTube, from Twitter, from Facebook, please follow Jaliya The Bird, Stella Kivuki, Simone Atangana Bekono, Mbali Malimela, Natty Olgi, and make sure that you follow their journey and their ideas and thoughts on social justice, on human rights, and on the beauty that is this existence of our living, of our being here. I want to just say I'm so honored to have navigated you through this program. And remember, we still have another day of the Artfluence Human Rights Festival. This is the inaugural edition, but we have many more to come. May we bring the human in us. May we continue to survive. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, my dear colleagues, for giving yourselves. And thank you so much to our sponsors. Thank you so much to Hear My Voice, to UKZN, to the NIHSS, to the Embassy of the Netherlands, the Center for Creative Arts, UKZN, for making this event possible. And may we see each other again. Go to the Artfluence Facebook, all the socials, Twitter, Instagram pages, so that you can see more on what is still going to happen. May you all be blessed. Good night, good morning, good day.